For some reason, all the Korean Challenger players are using Arcane Comet Emax Misfortune nowadays. So let's see what exactly they're doing. We invade, huh? Let's see if red team can make something happen here. They should be fine. There are 4 people, right? Yeah, okay, he gets away. Misfortune is also fine. Alright, nothing happening here. Hello, my fellow Misfortunates, and welcome to a Challenger analysis. I haven't done one of those in quite a while, but today it's overdue, because after looking at the Challenger server in Korea, what they're doing in solo queue there, oof, okay. Engage and counter engage. Yeah, you need to be careful. Misfortune started tier. So what I noticed is pretty much all of them are going Emax Arcane Comet with Manamune, first or second item. So there are 2 variants of this build. The first one being Manamune second, so tier first, then Eclipse, then Manamune, then full lethality. Or what this person is doing, Manamune first, then Gale Force, Collector, IE. So especially after the Gale Force buffs, this looks promising, to say the least. So Emax in lane is super strong. The rune page is a little bit, well, not counterintuitive, but they are foregoing Cheap Shot in favor of Taste of Blood. So just try and be as safe in the lane phase as possible, I suppose, while still applying pressure with Scorch, E, and Arcane Comet. Scorch and Arcane Comet have an interesting synergy anyway, because the Scorch proc lowers the Arcane Comet cooldown, or if it's ready, it can also trigger the Arcane Comet. And obviously, with your Make It Rain, you will very likely connect with the Arcane Comet. So this build has a lot of pressure in lane. Ooh, okay, Pantheon also has a lot of pressure in lane. Wow, that was surprisingly fast. I mean, okay, they reworked Pantheon a little bit this patch, so he's a weaker support and rather a solo laner. Not sure exactly how far this played a role in that exchange, but he died unexpectedly quickly. I thought he would put up a better fight or pressure Misfortune to the point where she needs to be afraid of dying. Yeah, so when you have a tier, so first of all, tier plus mana flow band does not fix all of your mana issues if you spam E. Misfortune's E is a very broken spell. It's super powerful, but it's balanced through mana cost. It costs 80 mana at all ranks, which essentially means spamming it in lane will you very quickly. So unless you have tier plus mana flow band plus biscuits, you can't spam it in lane without running And obviously this Misfortune player does not have biscuits. Could you go biscuits with this? I don't think so, because you need lifesteal from the Ravenous Hunter. Ravenous Hunter essentially being lifesteal, right? And, well, maybe you could play this with Overheal and Legend Bloodline, if you love the Overheal interaction just as much as I do. In case you don't know, as long as Misfortune is shielded, it's impossible to interrupt her W movement speed passive, so Overheal and Bloodthirster are very strong on her. But yeah, Taste of Blood is one of the strongest runes in the lane phase, and especially when you have tier first and no Doran's item, you kind of need more safety, right? So yeah, that's the rune page pretty much. The damage should be fine in the late game with crit and with a Mura mana. So not having Gathering Storm in favor of Scorch is also alright, I guess. But I really want to see especially how this player uses the Gale Force active. If he's just going for the wide ultimates, or if he actually uses it for repositioning purposes or gap closing and stuff. I mean, Gale Force is such a versatile item. Especially after the buff, it really got hard buffed in terms of cooldown. The active had a 90 seconds cooldown before, and now it's 60 seconds. That's 33% off the cooldown. It's crazy. It's like 50 ability haste. Or item ability haste, right? Item haste, I think, is what it's called. But yeah. Something going on in the river here. Misfortune not following, but Maokai does. Yeah, okay. Red team should be fine though. Numbers advantage. Oh, they actually just give the kill to Misfortune. That's nice. Obviously, strategically a very wise choice, because AD carries scale with items the hardest, except for some like outliers, such as Kassadin mid lane, or Tryndamere top lane, or Jax, or whatever, or Master Yi jungle. But generally speaking, AD carries should get the most, or you should get as much gold on the AD carry as possible, because again, they just scale the strongest with items. So yeah, the build I think is also quite nice because, well, after Manamune, you kinda, well, again, as I've told you, you can go for the lethality version, but the newly buffed Infinity Edge, I mean, it's borderline playable, right? It's not garbage anymore as it was last patch. Okay, very, very nice positioning, going or moving not too close to those bushes, because obviously Pantheon is trying to ambush you. Okay, that's aggressive. Notice he ulted there to damage them and also kill the melee, the caster minions, to set up this minion crash dive, because now they can't escape, and they just die and lose the double, or not the double stack, but they lose the entire minion wave. It's not a double stacked wave, but still, they lose the cannon wave. This wave gets cleared too, so yeah, this is a bread and butter macro play, the minion crash dive. Yeah, whenever you're setting up a dive, you want to kill the wave as fast as possible, so you can position yourselves freely while the tower is still focusing the minions, right? And the enemy obviously loses the minion wave, which is another bonus for you. MF should be fine. Okay. Yeah, so now she's again. Tia is obviously not stacked yet, and, well, Manaful Band probably is stacked, so that's working for her. But, lower levels, your mana pool is still rather restricted. Once you get your fully stacked tier and to higher levels, managing your abilities is a little bit easier. At least with the Emax playstyle, where you need to actually use E in order to make it worth it. But yeah, back to the build. Gale Force, it has so much potential. I think a lot of AD carries will discover this item in the near future, because right now it also got some stat buffs. I think 5 AD, or what did they give to the item? I'm not sure. They buffed its stats though, which is a big deal, because whenever an item is not stat efficient or not gold efficient in terms of raw stats, that means you're paying for the passive or the active in the case of Gale Force. So now Gale Force is 100% gold efficient, which means you don't really sacrifice combat power by opting into that active. Yeah, that active is quite powerful. Whenever you give a dash to a champion that is not supposed to have a dash, yeah, you can do some crazy stuff. We all saw the interaction with Misfortune and her ultimate. I'm not sure if this will be getting patched soon, but yeah, if you cast Misfortune ulti while dashing forward with Gale Force, the projectiles get spread out a little bit, and you essentially cover a wider area with your ulti. It looks quite funny. It's highly situational, but it does have its uses when you are fighting like out in the open, in mid lane, for example, where there are not as many walls to trap the enemies between for your ulti. So you can still cover the entire lane by widening your ulti with Gale Force. Anyway, Misfortune bought Manamune and has a pickaxe, which builds into Gale Force. So it's all damage, right? Not even boots, which means she is quite strong in comparison. Yeah, that minion crash dive really ended the lane for the enemies. It's like the most devastating macro play you can go for. And it was very important that Misfortune actually looked at her minimap, seeing the Hecarim, and ulting the wave, plus dealing some chip damage to the enemy there. You see, the beauty of Make It Rain, why it's so broken, is the range is way bigger than any AD carry's auto-attack range. So whenever she makes it rain on you, you can't retaliate. It's just not possible. Ah, the good old wave clear ulti, just pressing R on the wave, getting extra pressure on the tower. Okay, maybe she overstepped. Come on, strut. W. Okay, Akali flashes. That means Misfortune dies, most likely. Yeah, okay. So, Obviously dying to the assassin and giving them a shutdown is not good. But let's just assume Akali was visible on the map and Misfortune had all the reason to stay there for longer. Ulting a wave before recalling is always good, because you can't use your ulti while you're in base anyway. So might as well put it on cooldown, get value. And it's not just the gold you get from the minions, it's also the fact that your minion wave will walk deeper into the enemy territory, giving you vision and also putting pressure on the next tower, forcing your enemies to react essentially or lose gold and tower HP. So yeah, always ult before you can before you go base if you can. And okay, finally, Berserker's Greaves. So now she should be able to run from Akali, right? Okay, so after boots are finished, I guess the next purchase will be the mythic item of Gale Force. And then we can see what this Misfortune player makes of it. By the way, the combination of Misfortune and Maokai support is so nasty. They synergize very well. If I had to give you a ranking of the best supports for Misfortune, the best one would probably be Rakan, then Morgana, then Leona or Maokai, then Maokai or Leona, and number 5, Nautilus. Those are my top 5. I'm not quite sure if Leona or Maokai is better for Misfortune. They are very similar in terms of what they do. But yeah, again, hitting the tower as an AD carry is quite risky. Misfortune paying the price for it there. So Jace is covering top lane right now, which means Misfortune goes mid lane to support her team. Well, obviously, support like as in provide utility and damage. By the way, if you are behind as Misfortune with an Emax build, you're still doing, or you're still helping your team quite a... Oh, there we see the synergy between Maokai and Misfortune. That's nasty. But the fact that you got E on rank 5, it's a 10 seconds cooldown without any ability haste, and it's a 60% AoE slow. That's active for 3 seconds, 2 seconds, something along those lines. However, it is still a highly potent tool for team fighting, setting up plays for your teammates or even your own plays with your ultimate. So even if you are behind and kind of starved in terms of gold, then you can still provide crazy utility with your E, your Make It Rain. Its damage is also not to be scoffed at. Many people argue for the Qmax builds over the Emax builds by saying that you would lose out on so much damage by going Emax instead of Qmax. And this is not true at all. Q gains 20 damage per rank up, and E gains 35 damage per rank up, so base damage, right? And moreover, E is magic damage, and champions have, well, champions gain more armor per level up than they gain magic resist. This is, I think, true for all champions. So base damage being magic, obviously it doesn't scale with AD, but it doesn't need to, we're just talking about base damage here. The AD ratio of Q doesn't go up if you level it or something, it's only really the cooldown which is the selling point. That goes lower with each rank. So yeah, Emax is a lot of damage, believe it or not. And utility. And it provides vision. E is really a broken spell. It's, again, only balanced through mana cost. But yeah, now that Mana Mune is finished and the tier component is almost stacked, obviously Mana Full Band is stacked and level 11 means your mana pool is naturally higher anyway, mana is no longer an issue really. And you can just make it rain whenever you need to. Provide vision. Allow Maokai to gap close, for example, that's also an issue. Maokai always has this weird feeling to him, where the enemies are just walking slightly outside of your range, and unless you flash W them, you will never get them. But Misfortune's Make It Rain can allow him to just walk up to them, because they're slowed by 60%. Right, Misfortune covering mid lane. Yeah, okay, going bot lane wouldn't have been too good for her, because again it's a 3v1, making that a 4v1 doesn't really change much. So Misfortune just dodging into that, just looking to apply pressure on mid lane. And now the Gale Force is completed, which hopefully means we're going to see some Gale Force plays very soon. I'd love that. Also the 3% movement speed is obviously quite nice. Misfortune is, or Misfortune works a lot around her movement speeds. W rotations. And when you have Overheal or Bloodthirst, they're also in team fights. But yeah, movement speed on Misfortune is quite valuable. So the Mythic passive... I mean, it's not as good as, like, Lethality Mythic passive, or % Armor Penetration Mythic passive, or even Raw Attack Damage Mythic passive. But it's still valuable on Misfortune. Oh, there we see it. Okay. That was the wide ulti. Kind of just a flex here, not really necessary, because in that jungle pathway, well, you're covering the entire area anyway, but yeah, for style points, going for the Gale Force ulti, I love it. So obviously when you're chasing someone, it's also quite nice, because the Gale Force bolts will also deal some damage. And just widening the angle, it looks cool, and it might catch some enemies trying to hide by surprise. So yeah, the surprise factor is, because right now, at least on the NA or EU West servers, hardly anyone is playing Gale Force Misfortune. The surprise factor is still very much real. But yeah, the Gale Force ulti, I love to see it. But yeah, you don't have to combine it with ulti. That's something you need to keep in mind. Just because you have the option to go for that interaction doesn't mean you need to. You can still, if the enemy have an assassin, for example, and you see them gap closing or something, or a Rengar is jumping onto you. I'm not sure if you prevent the damage with that. Well, you should, shouldn't you? If Rengar jumps from his ulti on top of you, but before he lands, you Gale Force away, maybe you dodge the damage. I'm actually not sure about that interaction. Maybe if someone of you guys knows what happens then. Does Misfortune still or does the champion still take damage if they flash or Gale Force away or Arcane Shift away or what have you? Because that would be also something. I mean, I haven't played with Gale Force too much myself yet, so I don't know of all these interactions. But again, the AD carry in 2021 or 2020 meme, it can be just a meme if you itemize correctly, or if you have some defensive outplay capabilities in your items or your runes, then, I mean, you can very well defend yourself, even against people trying to one-shot you. Ah, there we go. Okay, Gale Force to gap close, Q auto for the burst damage. So yeah, when you have it up, you can use it for ult plays, but you shouldn't limit yourself to that. Sometimes it's just enough to Gale Force during a combo, or again to bridge the gap between you and your opponent, or to just run away quickly. Yeah, that Herald should be free. The red team, okay. What am I talking about? We're nearing the 20-minute mark, so the Herald despawns anyway. I didn't pay attention to the timer there. But yeah, taking that Herald would have been free a minute ago or something, because red team is quite far ahead, and whenever you're ahead, you want to snowball your advantage, right? Okay, so second crit item, the Collector, which means the next item can be Infinity Edge. So Infinity Edge is obviously completely worthless when you have less than 60% crit, but you get full value out of the passive as soon as you have 60%, so it's designed to be a third item in a crit build. Obviously Manamune doesn't give any crit, so here it's the fourth item technically, not counting boots. But yeah, I mean, the same that was true for Rift Herald is still true for Baron. The enemy team is quite far behind, so... Okay, here's the Make It Rain checking for vision, or checking for enemies in the bush rather, providing vision. But yeah, the blue team is rather far behind, so... Red team really needs to start taking objectives. The longer they are just idling around, the more chances the blue team gets to catch back up. You don't want that to happen. You need to snowball your lead to victory, or you just risk going into a coin flip 50-50 late game. If you just allow the enemy team to scale. Okay. This guy is just in love with the wide ultimate. I mean, okay, Gale Force just got buffed this patch, so it's now playable, really. And this is obviously, I guess it's also some form of limit testing, just seeing how much value this combo really provides in those all-in skirmishes. But yeah, it's definitely like the flashiest use of the Gale Force active with Misfortune's ulti. It's just so goofy. I love it. Fun fact, you can't do it backwards. If you Gale Force backwards but ulti forwards, the same interaction still happens, but in reverse, right? You need to ulti and Gale Force in the same direction for the ults to widen. If you ulti and Gale Force in opposite directions, the ulti narrows. So you actually hit less with it. The cone goes from this to like this, right? So you always need to do that aggressively or not at all. Like if you need to escape, you Gale Force back, and then after the animation is finished, then you ult, and you just get the normal cone. Dragon spawning, huh? Whoa, the snipe! Wow, that Ezreal. I'm kinda impressed. Renekton dies though. Yeah, nothing you can do. Misfortune doesn't even need to bother. She should just take away the red buff or the dragon. I'm not sure. Oh, are they doing Baron? Wait, what? Yo, they actually tried this. It would have never crossed my mind in a game state like this. But I mean, on the other hand, blue team really needs to make something happen here. So, going for a let's call it desperation play. I mean, if it works, then all of a sudden blue team is back in business. But if they don't try to go for something and just get smothered by red team, then I mean it's the same outcome. So might as well risk something and hope it goes well. I'm not sure. It's always very difficult to play from behind. Typically, when you are on the losing side or in the losing team, you don't really want to be proactive. You need to play it safe and try to provoke your enemy into like a careless tower dive or something. And it's just all about those wide ultis. And try to react to their careless or impatient plays. Because if your enemy plays it perfectly, you lose no matter what. So might as well try and give them the opportunity to make mistakes. But yeah, that was a devastating team fight, and red team got the Dragon Soul, and now they get the Baron. So I'm pretty sure blue team, well, unless something crazy happens, like they get, what could they get? They don't really have the greatest team fighting tools to begin with. They're more like a pick comp, right? So they would need to get a pick and then a team fight with numbers advantage. So that's how they might be able to come back into this game. But again, if you are in the winning team, you have more goals, you have more stats, and if you play it decently, the enemy team doesn't have a big chance to make. Ooh. Okay, I mean, whatever. Trying to Gale Force over the wall. I mean, not Gale Force over the wall by jumping over the wall, but by sending the Gale Force arrows over the wall, right? I'm pretty sure that works. You can't cross terrain with Gale Force active, but the bolts should still seek a target, even if it's behind terrain. At least that will make sense, right? Okay, so now the 60% crit power spike with Infinity Edge. Misfortune's ulti scales with crit a little bit. The crit scaling is rather poor, but it's there. But the main thing is like all the attack damage these items provide. 60, 70, 55, 73, yeah. Misfortune and attack damage is just a match made in heaven. It's the best stat you can buy on her. Just raw attack damage. I wouldn't even bother with attack speed items, like rapid fire cannon, for example, which is commonly bought on her because of the Q interaction. Okay. Okay, bro, calm down. Your Quadra? Where's the Penta? Okay, no Penta. Unlucky. But yeah, Gale Force Misfortune. It's quite lovely, isn't it? I will definitely test this out. Let me know what you think. But if you want to see the Misfortune build that I consider the best right now, then click the link on your screen right there. A big thank you to all my Patreons and channel members. If you want to become a Patreon yourself, just go to patreon.com/mfdb. But if you rather save your money, you can support me for free by clicking the like and the subscribe button.